rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
All right, so welcome to Tuesday's edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Guys, Chicago is on fire, but the new mayor, Brandon Johnson, and the local BLM chapter is absolutely silent. I wonder why. We're not going to talk about Black Lives Matter because the Black lives don't matter to the left. But Black lives murdered are being ignored in the city of Chicago. Just this weekend on Saturday night, one guy opened fire on a group of people that were gathered for a vigil. You had earlier in that day in broad daylight, a 70-year-old man was shot in the chest. Two 16-year-olds, one boy and one girl were among the victims that were shot as well and killed. A 24-year-old was shot multiple times while sitting in his vehicle. What is the national media saying? Absolute crickets. We're going to be talking about that and more in this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Stay tuned for some quick program messaging. All right, guys, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Please join us please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. We're on Apple, we're on Google, we're on Spotify. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel or our Rumble channel. That is the free speech platform, rumble.com. The Carl Jackson Show, the same is true for YouTube. It's not a free speech platform, but we need you to find us there. We need you to rate and review. Give us a 5, if you will, because more people will be exposed to this podcast if you do that. So we thoroughly appreciate that. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Getter, I'm on Truth Social at the Carl Jackson Show. Twitter and Getter, it's at Carl Jackson Show. But if you type in the Carl Jackson Show at the Carl Jackson Show, you'll be able to find us there. So I appreciate you guys tuning in today. Man, there's so much that I want to get to, so many headlines that I want to get to, but there's this story. I want to talk about what's transpired or focus on what's transpired in the city of Chicago over the weekend that no one is talking about. But before I do that, we have a clip of Senator Tim Scott. He made an appearance on The View yesterday, and obviously he's announced that he's running for the presidency. Listen, let me say this. For those of you that know me, I love Senator Tim Scott as a senator. I don't want him to be president. Let me just be frank. I don't want him to be president. I think he was absolutely in his element on the TV show The View, and I think he has a powerful voice when it comes to race relations in America. There's some policy disagreements that I have with him when it comes to policing, and given what we're seeing in Washington, D.C., with this rogue agency known as the FBI and the DOJ leadership that oversees the FBI, I don't want anyone in office in the White House that is talking about police reform or national policing. That is a state, that is a community, local issue thing. So that is a big red flag for me personally when it comes to Senator Tim Scott. And I think he's a little more liberal on issues of immigration. He's more of an establishment Republican when it comes to the issue of immigration. We can't tolerate any of that stuff right now. However, there is no one that will speak of Senator Tim Scott that won't say he is a good guy. He's a great guy. He's a good Christian. He's a decent man. So you hear that all the time. You don't hear bad stories about this guy, and he handled himself masterfully on The View. So I do want to get to that in just a second. But today is a very special day, and frankly, I feel bad. I just want to be completely honest with you, because what I should have done, and forgive me, I will do this. I will make sure that we do this in the future. But I should have dedicated a day to D-Day. It is very important. And as I see the left trying to abolish history in America right now, there's a group that is that Target has helped to fund called NDN that are literally trying to abolish Mount Rushmore. They're talking about, hey, listen, we stole this land from Indians and so on, et cetera, in the Black Hills of South Dakota. So this land should be, Mount Rushmore should be abolished, and we need to return that land to indigenous people. Shut up. Indigenous people or Native Americans own slaves. They owned African slaves. They enslaved each other. I'm so sick and tired of you fake and phonies out there that want to pretend like there's one particular group that was more righteous than the other. And by the way, all of those people are dead. They are dead. And so I'm sick and tired of going back into history and pretending like we would have been some nuns or some priests in the days of old, and this slavery would have never occurred over, under us. Conquering land would have never occurred. Grow the hell up. I'm so sick and tired of these morons on the left, and even some on the right that acquiesce to these arguments. No, Mount Rushmore should be polished. I want to see Mount Rushmore. I need to go before these fools blow it up. But that's one issue that I wanted to talk about. I'm actually going to get into that a little deeper tomorrow on the podcast. I'll also be sitting in for Dennis Prager, so make sure you check that out. But I'm going to make some of the arguments that I'm making here on Dennis Prager's show tomorrow, but I'm going to expound on them. Black Lives Murdered is the topic for the day. But let me say this about D-Day. Let me at least read the history. I think it's important, especially now that the woke left is trying to get rid of all of our days and holidays that are worth remembering. It's important that we remember them. It's important that we memorialize them. It's important that we talk about them even more so. We need to drown these fools out. Dan Bongino, I love that guy. When I get a chance, I really love listening to him. There's other talk show hosts that I love listening to, obviously on the Salem Talk Show Network, but he's one that's not on it that I really enjoy listening to. There's a couple others as well, no doubt, but he says something that I thought was really masterful over the weekend. I have no idea whether or not he's kept up that campaign or not, but one thing he talked about was, this is Pride Month for the LGBTQ communists, not all lesbian and gays, but for the communists that reside within that movement, especially the trans communists. This is a month of activism. What they're proud of, I have no idea what. Having sex with someone of a different race is not, someone of the same sex is not an accomplishment. Pretending that a dude could be a chica and a chica could be a dude, that is not an accomplishment. So I don't know what there is to be proud about. But one thing we all can be proud of, and we should return to, is a national pride for being an American. And so I think that we should co-opt National Pride Month. And again, I don't know if Dan Bongino is doing this, but I think it's an idea that we should run with. But I think that we should co-opt Pride Month with National Pride Month or with American Pride Month. Display your oh my God. Let's make sure we edit that one. Display your flags. Maybe we shouldn't. That's funny. I'm sorry. That was a slip up. That was really a slip up. Sorry. Display your flags. All right. Talk about the goodness of America leading all the way up to Independence Day. I think that is a great idea. That's what we need to do. We need to set up our flags, be patriotic, love America. Obviously the left and those in charge are going to hate that. And that's why we should love it even more. But today is D-Day. Today is D-Day, and this is a very special day because I would argue that they don't make men like they used to. Not enough of us anyway. But so here's just a gist from the history from the history.com website. And I know any one of you can go and read the details of this. And next year, I'll be sure to either have a guest or expound on this far beyond history.com. But I just think it's important to remember because a lot of men sacrificed to give us the freedom that we have today that actually believed in the goodness of America. And if it were not for the sacrifices of American soldiers in World War II and some of our allied troops, I don't know that we would be able to sit here today, so many Americans, and complain in the ways in which so many of us do. So if I could just give you the summary of D-Day, I think it's just important for us to carry on and to talk about days like this. So according to history.com, D-Day was the name given to the June 6, 1944 invasion of the beaches at Normandy in northern France by troops from the United States, Canada, and the UK and other countries during World War II. And by the way, do they still do, Gabe, do you know if they still do honor flights? Do you remember? I'm not sure if they still do honor flights. I need to ask about that. But you guys might remember these honor flights. I'm ashamed to admit I don't even know if they still do them. But what honor flights would do is fly veterans of these wars back to Washington D.C. to go see the memorials out there, and it was such an amazing experience. There were a couple of times where I went to a one of the airports here in the Central Florida area, where they were either taking off or arriving to see some of the veterans that had served in World War II. Many of them that were bound to wheelchairs, and I mean, this would probably be the last time they would get to go experience them, because so many of these people are dying off quickly here. I mean, obviously, World War II was a long time ago, and so many of them were so young. So to even see some of them alive was absolutely fascinating. But there were people there from the Korean War, Vietnam War, but it was just a neat thing to see. And so we need to honor those people, and we need to honor their memory, honor their sacrifice. I remember a long time ago attending an event where a university professor was there. This was a professor that trained other professors, and I won't say where, but trained other professors within the university system on being professors, essentially. And I remember this professor saying, that she had talked to another professor that was a history professor and said, "Why did you teach history? I mean, why do you teach about the importance of World War II and Vietnam, and all of that stuff is outdated?" I was shocked. Before that, I was having a fantastic conversation with this person. Once she said that, my jaw dropped, and I was like, "This lady is a complete idiot and a complete moron." Because if you don't know your history, you are doomed to repeat it. And needless to say, we didn't call it that back then, but the lady was apparently a social justice warrior. So I'm thinking, like, okay, if you're not concerned about history, why do you bring it up when it comes to civil rights and all this kind of stuff? You bring it up because you don't want to repeat it. You want to know history so that you don't repeat it. So you correct the sins and the evils. It was really stupid and really sad to hear this professor that trains other professors say that. But anyway, I didn't mean to spend this much time on it, but I just want to go back to the summary. It's important that we remember days like today. So again, D-Day was the name given to the June 6, 1944 invasion of the beaches of Normandy in France by troops from the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. and other countries during World War II. France at the time was occupied by the armies of Nazi Germany, and the amphibious assault, it was codenamed Operation Overlord. Listen to this, landed some 156,000, oh my Lord, Allied soldiers on the beaches of Normandy by the end of the day. Despite their success, 4,000 Allied troops were killed by German soldiers defending the beaches. At the time, the D-Day invasion was the largest naval, air, and land operation in history. And within a few days, about 326,000 troops, more than 50,000 vehicles, and some 100,000 tons of equipment had landed. By August of 1944, guys, just 2 months later, by August of 1944, all of northern France had been liberated, and in spring of 1945, Allies had defeated the Germans. Historians often refer to D-Day as the beginning of the end of World War II. If there is anyone alive that might hear this podcast, we salute you. We absolutely salute you, male or female. A lot of women involved in the military at that time as well, doing whatever role they had to play in this stuff. Just amazing and fascinating. We salute you. So I do want to say that. Now, I got some other headlines that I want to talk to you about, but I want to get started with the topic of the day, the main topic that I like to focus on: Black lives murdered. Black lives murdered. And because of Black Lives Matter, and because of people like the new mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, more Black lives, more Black people will be murdered. I believe this, that Black victims, or those Blacks that have the Black victim mentality, and white progressives are an existential threat. White progressives you'll find aligned with the Democrat Party and the Democrat Party, so on, etc. But white progressives are an existential threat to to the black community. That also includes reporters. And quite frankly, the more I think about it, more and more reporters. But here's Senator Tim Scott. Now, you guys might remember, for all intents and purposes, Sonny Hostin, as well as Joy Behar, who conveniently wasn't there on the day that they invited Senator Tim Scott to come on a Monday. She basically, Joy Behar said that basically, and I'm paraphrasing, Senator Tim Scott really didn't know what it was like to be a black or real black. He's like Justice Clarence Thomas, who believes that blacks can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. What an idiot! A white old lady making that statement. What a racist! What a bigot! What an idiot! Frankly, listen. There should have been enough uprising, in my opinion, where this woman lost her job. That was some very sick stuff to say. However, Senator Tim Scott handled it masterfully. And then you have another brain dead human being, basically, and Sonny Hostin, that was saying that she's the exception to the rule. Sonny Hostin, who, by the way, looking at her, listen, let's just be real. That chick ain't 100% slave blood. All right, let's just be real. But anyway, she was saying that she's an exception to the rule. Instead of telling people what she did and the sacrifices she may have made to get in the predicament that she's in, where she's rich, she has a rich doctor husband and a son that's in Harvard, maybe she should talk about the how she conquered systemic racism and oppression in America. And right. And now, obviously, I'm being facetious, but she should tell people what she did, instead of just saying that blacks are, the moment of their birth, their race, they have to fight against some oppressive system. It's absolutely asinine, and it is dangerous. So let's go ahead and roll this video. This is Senator Tim Scott. I think he handled this masterfully. He did a wonderful job. So I really give him props. I'm not sure that there could have been a better guest to deal with their asinine comments, from some of these View hosts. But let's go ahead and roll the tape, por favor, Gabe.
One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on the show, is because of the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. That is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is by being the exception. I will tell you that if my life is the exception, I can't imagine.
But it is.
But it's not, actually. It's been
114 years.
Yeah, so the fact of the matter is we've had an African-American president, African-American vice president. We've had 2 African-Americans to be secretaries of the state. In my home city, the police chief is an African-American who's now running for mayor. The head of the highway patrol for South Carolina is an African-American.
Still exceptions.
In 1975, there was about 15% employment in the African-American community. For the first time in the history of the country, it's under 5%.
40% homelessness.
And 50%
of African Americans,
50% of the folks in our community
get 13% of the population.
You had the chance to ask the question. I know that I've watched you on the show that you like people to be deferential and respectful, so I'm going to do the same thing.
That is true.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest the fact of the matter is that progress in America is palpable. It can be measured in generations. I look back at the fact that my grandfather, born in 1921 in Sally, South Carolina, when he was on a sidewalk, a white person was coming, he had to step off and not make eye contact. That man believed then, with some doubt now, in the goodness of America, because he believed that having faith in God, faith in himself, and faith in what the future could hold for his kids would unleash opportunities in ways that you cannot imagine. Every kid today can look, just change the stations and see how much progress has been made in this country. ABC, NBC, CBS, ESPN, CNN, Fox News all have African-American and Hispanic hosts. So what I'm suggesting is that yesterday's exception is today's rule. And for us to
suggest...
So
America has met its promise.
No, of course, the concept of America is that we are going to become a more perfect union. That, in fact, the challenges that we face 50 years ago and 60 years ago should not be the same challenges that we face today. And here's the way that you measure that. When my mother was...
Hold on, listen, I'm just freezing this simply because of copyright infringement. I let this go on because I just think he did a masterful job, and I wanted you guys to hear it. And I'm going to continue with the video, but I probably should have stopped it earlier. I don't know, so forgive me if I've gotten this wrong. But I want you to hear this, because basically here's what Senator Tim Scott is saying. There's evidence, right? And we can look around and there's evidence. Black people succeeding are not the or not the we're not the exception. They are the rule, just like everybody else, as long as there are some missing elements that I think they should be talking about. And that is, and I think he comes from a single family, single mother home. So in that sense, based upon today's standards, that probably is I don't want to say an exception, but I would say it definitely makes it harder. However, Black success in America, Blacks can be just as successful as whites, Latinos, or anyone else, immigrants that come to this country legally. All right. By the way, they can be just as successful, or we can be just as successful as anyone else if we do apply ourselves, find our niche in this world, and work hard to get there. Sonny Hostin, if she would tell people how she got where she got, that would be much more helpful than saying, you know what, you can't make it because of the color of your skin. Because people will actually believe that crap. And because they believe that crap, they'll stay impoverished. They'll stay with this victim mindset. They won't go anywhere. They won't even try. They won't be incentivized to try to move ahead. Because why should you? Because even if you succeed on one level, you have this boogeyman in the back of your head that people like Sonny Hostin has put there that has said, you can't propel. You can't go any further than this because eventually you're going to run into this systemic oppression that's going to stop you. And it's absolute nonsense. This chick is maybe in her heart, she's trying to be compassionate, but she's not compassionate. She's cruel because she's sentencing a bunch of young Black men and women to poverty, to crime, to victimhood. She is not a compassionate person. She is an absolute mean-spirited and cruel person. She would be much better at her job if she would encourage people and teach them and tell them how they can succeed in America. Because if she is the exception, which she is not, but if she is the exception, she figured it out. How come other people can't? Is she better than other Blacks? Is that what she's trying to say? Let's finish up with the video here, Gabe.
Was born, about 10% of African Americans got a high school degree, diploma. Today, it's over 90%. When you look at the income success that we've had.
That's an HBCU stat.
Well, listen, HBCU stat is a good one because one of the reasons why I took the funding for HBCUs to the highest level in the history of the country, and then I helped make it permanent, is because I believe that education is the closest thing to magic in America. So I'm about making sure that our kids have as many opportunities to succeed as possible. It's one of the reasons why
I need an opportunity to succeed because I have to go to break. They're begging.
We have more time, though.
They're begging. We're coming.
All right, let's. All right, that's enough of this video. That's enough for this video. Later in the video, Whoopi Goldberg goes around and she's standing with Sonny Hostin and Tim Scott, just demolishes their arguments once again. But fantastic job. And all he did was state facts. All he did was state evidence. And then she goes on to HBCUs as if they're the exception and not the rule. And then he reminds her, well, I'm a Black dude in the Republican Party that helped with Donald Trump, by the way, to secure permanent funding for the HBCUs, which he doesn't get credit for over the next decade. So they didn't have to go groveling to these white progressives every year in Congress. It's absolutely insane. Anyway, all right, so let's move on from that. But that was an excellent video. Excellent job by Senator Tim Scott. So I want to make sure that I give him kudos for that. There's some things that he does that I'll disagree with. This was amazing. Great job, Senator Tim Scott. Now, Black Lives Matter. Let me give you just talk about quickly. And I preface it at the beginning of the show, what happened in Chicago over the weekend. Oh, before I do, though, this show is impossible without my sponsors. Guys, the economy is tanking. That wasn't the greatest segue. I completely understand, but I got to make sure that I get this in because I want you guys to make sure your money is tight in this Biden inflation and this Biden economy. Guys, we're going to be back at the tables with another either debt ceiling debacle or an omnibus bill. Sadly, I believe by the end of the year, at least an omnibus bill, the spending is going to continue to increase. We're having Congressman Corey Mills on the podcast on Thursday to talk about that. So you can look forward to that. But meanwhile, I want to make sure that you get your assets right. So former President Trump, he issued a warning from Mar-a-Lago, and here's what he had to say. Our currency is crashing and will soon no longer be the world standard, which will be our greatest defeat, frankly, in 200 years. He's absolutely right about that. I mean, if the U.S. dollar is no longer the reserve currency around the world, you're talking about your dollar being literally dropping nearly 50%. Overnight. So some experts believe there are serious threats to the future value of the U.S. dollar because of inflation, because of the deficit spending, and also because of our increasing national debt. One asset that has withstood famines, wars, and economic disasters dating back to biblical times is gold. And you can own it in a tax-sheltered retirement account with the help of Birch Gold Group. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or your 401k, maybe from a previous employer, into an IRA that's in gold. And the best part is you don't have to pay a penny out of pocket. All you have to do is text my name, Carl, C-A-R-L, to 989898 and claim your free info kit on gold. Think about this. In March of this year, the banks faltered, the stock market faltered, but gold surged. Birch Gold can help you find out how to protect your savings with gold. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. Again, text my name, Carl, to 989898. Get your free info kit on gold. Again, text my name, Carl, C-A-R-L, to 989898. Also, I want to talk to you about MyPillow because MyPillow has this special still going on. So take advantage of it. An exclusive offer to my listeners. Buy one, get one free. Yes, I said the F word. Buy one, get one free. All right. Of the new MyPillow 2.0s, they come with the same patented adjustable feel as the original MyPillows, but now they have a temperature regulating thread on the exterior of the pillow that makes them softer, smoother, and even cooler to lay your head on. All of Mike's products at MyPillow come with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com, put in my name, Carl, C-A-R-L, in the radio listener square to take advantage of the buy one, get one free offer of the 2.0 pillow. Or if you prefer, you can give them a call, 800-858-0263 for MyPillow, 800-858-0263. Tell them Carl sent you. All right, now, let's get to this story of Chicago. What's happening into Chicago? All right, so 2 weekends in a row, in Chicago, there has been double-digit murders by shootings that have taken place, but it's been absolute crickets from the media. This last weekend, 52 people were shot in Chicago. 10 died. I shared with you some of the stories that transpired over the weekend. On Saturday night, a man opened fire into a crowd gathered for a vigil. He injured 7 and killed 1. Think about that for a second. So these people were at a vigil where obviously someone else either died by natural causes or probably got killed themselves. And I would suggest that it's probably the latter if they're at a vigil, right? So someone else that probably got killed, and you get a drive-by at a vigil while you're trying to honor the dead. This is absolutely insane. Earlier that day in broad daylight, a 70-year-old man was shot in the chest and killed. What reason is there to shoot and kill a 70-year-old man? How vicious do you have to be? You don't respect your elders. You don't respect life. This is Chicago. 2 16-year-olds, 1 boy and 1 girl at the beginning stages of life, gone, victims of the weekend's violence. A 24-year-old was shot multiple times and killed while sitting in his car. You talk about, you know how the left always says driving while black? You know, okay, we got it here. 24-year-old gone. Most of the victims, sadly, are young people in their teens, 20s, and 30s, and overwhelmingly, they're black. Overwhelmingly. I'll give you some numbers in just a sec. But the problem is this type of carnage, it's now expected in Chicago. You won't find a single national headline except here. Who was this? Oh, God forgive me. I believe this was the Washington Examiner, thank God, that wrote about this. But you're not going to find national news outlets, but besides some of the, whether it's Fox or Newsmax or some of the conservative outlets talking about this stuff, liberals don't want to touch it. Why? Because it's their fault. It's their fault. And these idiots and Black Lives Matter and these idiots, I'm sorry. If you're a useful idiot that votes for a Brandon Johnson, you're culpable for this. You're complicit in the murders of blacks. When you elect black communists to office, this is what you're going to get. These people don't care about black lives. They care about advancing their agenda. Have you heard the new mayor, Brandon Johnson, even talk about this stuff? He hasn't even put it out on social media. He doesn't even share this information with his constituents so they can know that so they can know how to protect themselves. I mean, he's just not sharing this stuff. It tells me that he doesn't care. He's got different priorities. This is insane, man. The NAACP, where are those fools? They're coming out and warning people not to come to the state of Florida, which is absolutely asinine. More black businesses started here in modern years or the last several years. It's been insane. Black people aren't afraid here to come to Florida. A lot of the liars in the NAACP that issued the travel warnings over the Memorial Day holiday actually live in the state of Florida. These guys are, just liars, despicable human beings, because all they're worried about is a narrative. They don't care about black lives. And as a result of their propaganda, more blacks are being murdered. It shouldn't be called Black Lives Matter. You should call it Black Lives Murdered, because as a result of these black communists and these white progressives, more young black men and women are dying by being murdered in the streets. And you punks in the media that don't have the courage or the conviction to call these people out. You would be saving black lives if you really cared about black lives, to put some pressure on Mayor Brandon Johnson. You would be saving black lives to make him ask or answer the question, why are so many young black males dying in the streets of Chicago? Why aren't you talking about it? Put a camera in that fool's face, put a microphone in that fool's face, make him answer. And you know what will happen? Eventually, so much pressure would rise up. He would be forced to do something. He would be forced to acknowledge the Chicago Police Department, give them the resources they need, unleash them so that they can protect people in the city. But no, all of you white progressives and you black communists, you're the reason that more black lives are dying on the streets of Chicago. Listen to some of these stats. In Chicago in the past 12 months, 682 murder victims in the past 12 months. 682 murder victims. How many of those were black? Almost 500. 489 to be exact. As of this weekend, that number will grow next weekend. And I don't mean to say that haphazardly. I just know that Mayor Brandon Johnson doesn't care. The people that voted for him don't seem to care. The media obviously doesn't care. So it's going to continue to happen. You know, I talked about these shootings that occurred earlier. And what's going to happen is you're going to just see more retaliation. This is going to be a vicious cycle. These people have been silent. Whether it's Mayor Brandon Johnson, he's silent. BLM, they're silent. Oh, no other racial group has more than 62 victims. So blacks, 489 out of 682 murders, 489 of the murders over the past 12 months have been black. No other ethnic group in Chicago has more than 62. Black Lives Matter. Yeah, right. Screw Black Lives Matter. We all know what they did. All they did was get rich off of being communist and creating more black victims, co-opting the black church, sadly. And now they're going broke because some people are finally starting to wake up. I guess people are hurting financially as well, so they're not contributing as much. The donations to Black Lives Matter has decreased by 88 to 90%, somewhere in that area. It should be 100%. These people are absolute frauds. Candace Owens did a documentary of them. She straight up went to the mansion of one of the founders. Man, these people, just big scam artists, nothing but big scam artists. That's all they are. So on Saturday, this past weekend, if you want to know what Mayor Brandon Johnson was doing, he spoke at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. That was in Washington, D.C. And then he went back to Chicago because he had multiple concerts to attend, musical performances of sorts. He had to attend some Pride events, but no, not even a social media post. Not even a social media post on the violence and the blacks that are dying within his city. under his leadership? Nothing. He has no plan to curtail Chicago's violence. No plan. No plan. Communists can't be bothered with the consequences of their policies. That's what you need to understand. Communists need these policies. Communists need death. Communists need misery. Communists need chaos. Why? Because their hope is that you will turn to big government and they will be able to rule over you. They want you to voluntarily and eventually forcefully, they'll do it if you don't volunteer, but voluntarily just give them more power. They know better than you. If some people have to die, if some people have to not be fed, so on, etc. If some people have to not be, not receive medical treatment, that's what communists do. Amazing. The local BLM chapter approvingly, they retweeted a picture of rioters burning down a building over the past few weeks. So that's what they're concerned about. That's the local BLM chapter. You don't need the national BLM chapter. The local BLM chapters suck too. They're a bunch of phonies as well, probably even more corrupt than the local, than the national chapters, except they're not getting as much of the money, but they're frauds too. They've also been promoting anti-police protests along with anti-Israel protests. So instead of focusing on the blacks that are being murdered right before their eyes, maybe some of their homies, they're concerned about anti-Israel protests and anti-police protests. This is astounding. This is astounding. So Black Lives Matter. Okay, now let me give you guys some of the other headlines that I think are sincerely important and that we need to be contemplating. And I'll dive into this a little more. But I saw this story initially on the Blaze, and I wish I would have talked about it because I heard everybody and their mother talking about it. So I wish I would have broke it down, but I will break it down more tomorrow. But listen, how do you depopulate the earth? How do you depopulate the earth? It's really simple. You buy into a lot of the communist propaganda, a lot of the communist ideas. You buy into climate change and man-made global warming, so kids will be so freaked out, right? Will be so freaked out that they won't want to get married. You buy into and have children. You buy into the LGBT, Q activism. So male and females aren't hooking up anymore and getting married. So they're not having children. You buy into abortion. I mean, these are all ways in which you can depopulate the earth, right? You talk about assisted suicide. You impose Obamacare on a bunch of people so they become numbers in the medical system rather than patients of doctors. You eliminate the patient-doctor relationship and you make everything administrative. That's exactly what's happened. That's how you depopulate the earth. This stuff is on purpose, people. It is absolutely on purpose. I got to refresh here, but here's the headline from the Blaze, if it'll pop up here. But you have Ireland considering killing 200,000 cows in order to fight climate change. So I believe these are mostly dairy farm cows. But I'm sitting here thinking, what would happen if what about if those 200,000 or how many people could 200,000 homeless people could 200,000 cows feed? Forgive me, I'm sitting here searching on my computer. The internet is just going a little willy-nilly on me. So let me just give you the summary. So government officials in Ireland are considering a plan to kill 200,000 cows to combat climate change, according to reports. There were multiple reports this week that the Irish government was contemplating a plan to kill or cull, they say, 200,000 cows within 3 years to fight climate change. So they're concerned that climate change is an existential threat. Apparently, people not getting protein is not an existential threat. These guys are just, this is all about power. This is all about control. There's no doubt in my mind that some people really buy into this crap, but this is all about control. The Irish Mirror stated that, quote, the cows would have to be culled or killed at a cost of, I don't even know, 600,000 pounds. I think that's what that is. I'm not sure what that stands for. The numeric sign they have to taxpayers over the next 3 years to meet climate emissions targets. The possible plan was detailed in an internal Department of Agriculture document that was unearthed in a Freedom of Information request. The Irish Creamery Milk Suppliers Association immediately railed against the reported plan to kill 200,000 of their cows. But this is what the government wants to do because they know better. And obviously they won't starve. They won't die. They're not worried about this stuff because while they while they kill dairy cows, if in fact they do it, because this has not been this is not definitive as of yet, but they are certainly headed in that direction. But you think that they're not going to have the best of dairy products? You don't think they're going to have the best cuts of meat? No, this is just for the peons. This is just for the middle class worker, whether it's in Ireland, whether it's in America, all of this stuff, all of these globalists are tied together with these idiotic plans. These people are evil. They are absolutely evil. Methane is destroying the planet. Then how come it hasn't? Cows have been around forever. How come it hasn't? It's absolutely astonishing. Another piece of news that's very important. The FBI still seems to believe that they're a fourth branch of the government. And this is very important. Guys, I'm telling you, probably the most important thing, or the two most important things, and I go back and forth, the open border. Right now, there was a story. The open border. I'm sorry, I'm pulling up the tip sheet for today. Actually, I didn't even intend to mention this, but it just popped into mind. So at least let me mention the headline. So you have this open borders issue where apparently there was a major stop of fentanyl at the border that could have killed up to 48 million Americans. Where is the headline here? Where is the headline? Okay, Border Patrol K-9 bust smuggler with $2 million worth of fentanyl that's capable of killing 48 million people. Washington Examiner, Border Patrol reported the seizure of $2 million worth of fentanyl in Arizona after a Border Patrol K-9 uncovered the stash. The amount of fentanyl seized in the stop totals the entirety of fentanyl seized in the Yuma section during fiscal year 2022. One dude. Thank God for that K-9. Thank God for that K-9. May he live long and prosper. For God's sakes, 48 million Americans could have been dead. So open borders is a serious threat. We don't know who's coming into the country. We don't know what they're bringing into the country. This nonsense has got to stop. But another threat to this country, and sometimes I think a bigger threat, I go back and forth in my head, but I do believe this, the rule of law is the bigger threat, right? If we don't have the rule of law, how can we protect the border? So I think I just talked myself into that being the most important issue. But whether you like Trump, whether you dislike Trump, understand that when the DOJ and the FBI are going after Trump, they're essentially going after you. And I mean that. Take his name out of it. Let me take his name out of it. The FBI cannot be a rogue agency. Imagine if Trump or another Republican gets in, if he were to weaponize them. Now, there are some people that need to be held accountable, like James Comey. He's trying to fake the funk. He's trying to project what he did onto former President Donald Trump. But Comey was corrupt as hell as an FBI as an FBI agent, as an FBI director. And we now know that. And I think he should be in a jumpsuit, perhaps in the same jail cell as Anthony Fauci. Both of those guys, but that's the way I feel. But the FBI, they're acting as if they're a fourth branch of the government. So you have the whole House Oversight Committee chairman, James Comer, that wanted these documents, to view these documents, and he has before, but proof or evidence that the Biden administration, that Joe Biden, and when he was VP, took a bribe of $5 million from a foreign national in exchange for policy decisions. And instead of relinquishing that document to the oversight committee, you have Christopher Wray saying, no, you too, James Raskin, who's the second in charge, a Democrat, second in charge of the committee, you guys can come see it in a secured room, what they call a SCIF. All right. So you guys can come see it here. And James Comer is like, no, honestly, it is time for Republicans to grow some Bozaks. So I'm glad James Comer is doing this. I'm glad he's sticking to this, like stink on boo boo, because this is very important. Let me try to pull this up. But I do want to give you the summary here. This is very, very important. Guys, we cannot operate if we don't have a rule of law, a system of rule of law, a system that is fair. We don't have a system that is fair. Some say we have a two-tier justice system. We don't have a two-tier justice system. There's no such thing. If the rule of law isn't fair and equal for everybody, it doesn't exist. If all you're doing is hooking up your homies, that isn't the rule of law. That isn't a two-tier justice system. That is, as some have explained, is a hierarchy. All right. So again, James Comer to begin contempt of Congress hearings Thursday for FBI Director Christopher Wray. I don't know what if this will matter or not. I would suspect that Christopher Wray is just as concerned about his life or his well-being if he becomes a rat for all intents and purposes against the Biden administration. These people are evil. I saw a headline earlier on Breitbart today. Let me see if I can. Okay, that's another one I'm going to have to talk about on another day. Nearly 1/3 of Gen Z support government surveillance. But basically, there was the FBI, if I recall correctly, let me see if I can find it, were like, hey, some person that gave up evidence or something, some whistleblower, may be concerned with their life. Let me see. Russian TV hacked, deep fake. Putin declares martial law. So Russian TV was hacked. That's on Breitbart. FBI warns Congress Biden bribery informant will get killed. Excuse me? Dude, you cannot have a rogue. You cannot have a rogue FBI. It simply cannot happen. This is scary crap. This is really scary crap. Congresswoman Luna, FBI afraid informant in Biden investigation will be killed. Why would the FBI be afraid? They can't protect him. Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna alleged Monday that the FBI fears an informant accusing Biden of a criminal bribery scheme will be killed. Not might, will be killed. In a social media post, Luna, who serves on a House Oversight Committee, said she learned of this alleged threat in a recent meeting. This is terrifying. Just left meeting for oversight, for House Oversight, and I'm quoting her. The FBI is afraid their informant will be killed if unmasked based on the info he has brought forward about the Biden family, close quote. That's real. That's real. And I can't stand Christopher Wray. But I wonder if he has to be concerned about this too. Let's just think about that. You can't have a rogue FBI. Christopher Wray needs to be brought to account. But I do have to wonder, what does he fear? What does he fear? I'm just curious. All right. Another piece of news I'll just mention real quickly. Did you guys hear about this? New York City Mayor Eric Adams. That guy is such a... let me see. Let me be careful. I'm trying to get better at just calling people idiots, morons, and names and stuff like that. Let's say he's foolish and unwise. All right. Does that sound better? I think that sounds better, Gabe. So the New York City Mayor, Eric Adams, is a very foolish and unwise man. Let me find the headline. Basically, this guy is offering private residents money to house illegal aliens. Did you hear me? He's offering private residents of New York to house illegal immigrants. What? Mayor Eric Adams asked private residents who have spare rooms to house illegal aliens. My word. This, according to the New York Post. Bring a complete stranger into your home to live with you and your family. Neither you nor the government know who the illegal immigrant is. For all you know, it could be a drug dealer, addict, a terrorist. Mayor Eric Adams wants regular New Yorkers to literally welcome illegal migrants flooding the Big Apple by revealing his latest idea to potentially put thousands of illegal aliens, they say asylum seekers. I don't play that game. I'm tired of these words trying to make everything nice. In a private dwellings while paying local homeowners and landlords. Adams said moving migrants or moving illegals into private homes is the next step in the administration's blueprint to house the crush of homeless individuals after unveiling a new plan to house single migrant men in 50 churches, a mosque, and other houses of worship across the 5 boroughs. Since last spring, they've had over 72,000 illegal aliens that have flooded into Gotham, with over 45,000 currently living in 160 taxpayer-funded emergency shelters. It's costing them a buttload of money. The first thing that I would do if I were you, Mayor Eric Adams, if you really wanted to solve this, I would say, you know what? The Democrat ideas on this are bad. This is no longer a sanctuary city. And I contest that Biden needs to close the border. He needs to do his job and close the border so that no state has to worry about this. All right. And it is really a dumb move. And frankly, if people take them up on this, they're really dumb because you don't know who you're housing. And frankly, there may be, and obviously there will be, right? Just given the numbers, some good, decent people that wanted to come to the United States that Americans might take advantage of. I mean, consider that. It's just a sick and twisted plan altogether. And last thing, this Indian, where is it at? This group wants to get rid of Mount Rushmore. Man, I wanted to talk, and I'll dive into that more tomorrow. Actually, I did talk about that at the beginning of the podcast, so never mind. I talked about it. I'll get into that a little more deeply tomorrow because I think that's very important. The fact of the matter is, we just pretend like history didn't happen, like the world. Like all the atrocities, if we were back in the past, would have never happened. And it's just not true. The world is full of evil people. Just look at the left. I mean, they don't want you to speak out about anything. They're willing to beat up conservatives, Christians, and people of faith if you believe differently than they do. The world is full of evil people. Look at the 20th century, for God's sakes. All of these dictators that killed millions and millions of people. It's insane. And yet these people want to pretend like they're morally superior. These people that are too afraid to tell you what a man is and what a woman is. Somehow they would be morally superior. They would be the right people to have lived in history in the slave days and all this kind of stuff. Just a bunch of morons, man. So anyway, make sure you tune in tomorrow. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to the show today. Please subscribe to the podcast again, wherever you go to get your podcast. I'd love to see more of you on social media. We're on Instagram, The Carl Jackson Show. We're on Twitter, The Carl Jackson Show. We're on Facebook, The Carl Jackson Show. We're on Truth Social. We're on Getter, at The Carl Jackson Show. At The Carl Jackson Show is where you can find us. I appreciate you guys tuning in to today's show. And until next time, man, I can't even get my words out. Don't grow weary doing good, and God bless.